Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've promised a couple times now that I'm going to start doing fairy tale stories. So I'm going to start with, well, technically I started before in the live show on Sunday, but my first solo story is actually going to be Russian. I wanted to do something a little unusual, and I wanted to go back to one of my basic favorite monsters of myth and legend, which is, of course, vampires. This is a Russian story. I found it interesting. I first ran into it in high school. And it's a very different story than what probably most of you are used to. So hopefully you'll find it as cool as I do. This, as I've mentioned during the live shows, this is a new segment I'm doing where I'm going to be telling various myths and legends from around the world. It's in addition to this live shows. They'll still be going on every Sunday. So, if you guys, hopefully you guys enjoy those, and you won't be missing out on those. When I do these at the moment, I'm hoping to get at least one of these done every week. That way you get one of these, and you get the live show every week, just to bump things up. But let's get started. So the story I'm telling is, as I said, the Cossack and the vampire. Now the story goes that a Cossack was had a strange encounter. He had been traveling to rejoin his regiment. He'd walked for days, and sometimes stopping to shelter from the cold when a farmer offered him hospitality of his barn. More often than not, the villages that he encountered, scattered throughout the harsh countryside, were wary of him, making the sign of the cross when he approached. Now one evening, as twilight was gathering, he spied a man camped along the side of the road. Though dressed raggedly, the stranger had kindled an inviting fire and was calmly mending a pair of boots. He did not react fearfully or superstitiously as the villagers had. The traveling soldier thought it odd the man had chosen to erect his camp beside an old graveyard, but was not deterred by the thought of the dead. Greeting the man with a brotherly hello, he gratefully warmed his hands by the fire. The stranger's reply was curt. "I call no man kin." Finished with his mending, he donned his boots and kicked the dirt over the fire. Without a word, he set off down the road. Undaunted by his behavior, the Cossack followed. "I will walk with you. Where do you go?" The stranger's response was a few grunted words, informing the Cossack he sought amusement. It wasn't long before the lights of a village glimmered in the darkness, and the sound of laughter and singing wafted to them on the air. On the edge of the village was a small cottage. It stood with its door ajar. A wedding reception was taking place. The two men were cheerfully welcomed inside, and the Cossack joined in the celebrations. The raggedy stranger elected to cling to the corners and sulk in the shadows. Enjoying himself, the Cossack gave little thought to the man's unsocial behavior. So shortly after midnight, he was pleased to see that the stranger approached the bride. These villagers were friendly. Finally, the man was going to pay his respect. The Cossack watched as the stranger knelt before the glowing bride. When she lowered her hands to accept his well wishes, he buried his face in her palms. Within a few seconds, she grew pale and swooned, but the stranger's face was flushed when he stood. As the wedding company gathered around the distraught bride, the Cossack followed the stranger outside. "I know what you are." The man sneered, his teeth stained with blood. "I've had my amusement. Leave me alone before I decide. I need more." He fled down the road to the graveyard, where the Cossack had first encountered him. Enraged by what he had done, the valiant soldier chased in pursuit. "You cannot kill me," the vampire proclaimed. "The thing that lives inside me can survive even the scourge of fire." Lunging at the Cossack, he grappled him around the waist. Strong from many years of soldiering, the Cossack fought back as no man had before. All through the long night, he struggled with his adversary. The two fought hand to hand, punching and kicking, twisting and rolling on the ground. When dawn arrived, with the heralding and the cry of the cock, the vampire released the Cossack and slithered into the grave. Of course, the Cossack was hurt, but he wanted to finish this, so he went back to the village and he gathered up the men. They armed themselves with scythes and shovels. They filled a cart with kindling cut from the rowan trees and birches. At the graveyard, they set it ablaze, using their pitchforks to heave the vampire's body onto the pyre. When the ghoul's charred skeleton crumbled to ash, a raucous shriek splintered the pungent air. Maggots and lizards and rats surged from the flames. A funnel of dark-winged scavenger birds burst into the air. Swiftly, the villagers set upon them, the vermin, beating the foul creatures with their weapons. The twitching bodies were thrown back, of course, onto the fire, and were quickly consumed. Then, even more spewed out, an endless horde. The villagers in the Cossack fought the swarms of creatures for hours, until finally they stopped coming. Exhausted, they waited and let the fire die and scattered the ashes to the winds. They knew that even had one of these creatures that had come out survived, the vampire would have gone on to find a new host and to find new victims. Happy that the vampire's evil had been thwarted, the Cossack bid farewell to the villagers and continued on his way. In one village, at least, he would be remembered fondly. I always liked the story. It's very different than the vampire stories people know. There's some common elements, and it illustrates something a lot of people think they know about vampire lore that's wrong. In a lot of vampire legends, particularly, there are legends of the Walking Dead all over the world. But uniquely, the vampires we think of come from Eastern Europe, the Balkans, Romania, Hungary, various other countries of that nature. The Romani, also known as Gypsies, have a lot of vampire legends that spread throughout Europe. This is where Stoker got his inspiration from. A common element to all of these stories is you burn the body. Sometimes you may drive a stake through the heart, although actually in a lot of the legends you don't just drive it through the heart, you impale the vampire to the ground. That way he can get up again. You might cut the head off. The various rituals, you might nail the head to the coffin with a silver nail. By the way, werewolves aren't as associated with silvers as the movies make you think. Vampires actually are. There's a lot of legends that vampires can be killed with silver. Very few that say werewolves need it. If any. There's some debate about that. But usually whatever you do to actually make it stick, you set the body on fire. This is a little different in that the vampire burst in all of these creatures and each of those had to be destroyed, as well as burning the main body itself. But it's a different sort of story. I personally like it, just as, we'll do some more vampire stories in here. We'll do probably the story of Arnold Payol, which is a very, very famous Serbian vampire case. That's actually pretty well documented, believe it or not, because it involved the army. There's also Mercy Brown, which happened here in the United States. I intend to tell her story. Forgive me, I still have a cough. That wraps it up for the Cossack and the Vampire. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As I keep saying, and I know I'm beating the dead horse here, but like, comment, subscribe. We are currently, as I make this video, at 97 subscribers. 3 more to reach that golden 100. If you can help me out there, I really appreciate it. But otherwise, this is Kevin. It's Thursday night. I'm signing out. I'll see you all on the live show on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a good night, gang.